Hello everyone, it's Jason at Model Kit Stuff, and today we're talking about Airfix ships and why it is you've not seen any for a while and why you might not see any for a little while longer. Hello everyone, yes, welcome to Model Kit Stuff. My name is Jason and today we're talking Airfix ships. They have made some of the most interesting ship kits over the years, but we haven't seen a new one for a while and I wanted to find out why that was. So I took the opportunity when I was at Telford this year to catch up with Dale Lockhurst, head of brand at Airfix, and I asked him the question that you guys have been asking me. Why haven't we seen a ship from Airfix in a while? I asked him another question as well, and we'll come to that towards the end of the video. But why am I so bothered that we've not seen a ship kit from Airfix? After all, there's lots of other people making model ship kits, so why am I fussed about the fact that Airfix isn't? Well, I'll tell you for why. Those manufacturers that are producing ship kits, and Trumpeter are by far the most prolific on this, they're feeding primarily the Pacific market, whereas Airfix have always stayed close to home. And as someone who is from Great Britain, I want to build ships that are of interest to me. So whilst there are British ships available, you're very limited in terms of number and in terms of how good they are, if I'm honest. So I hear all sorts of rumours and reasons given as to why Airfix aren't making ships. You know, there's no market for model ships. Well, that's clearly utter rubbish. If there's no market for model ships, why is it that the majority of my subscribers principally build ships as their primary interest? Over 56% of my subscribers build model ships first, even if they build other things as well. Their interest is ships. So it's not that there isn't a market. Because Trumpeter are putting out new ships every year, and in a range of different scales, 1350, 1200, 1700. We get from time to time new ships from Tamiya, but it's always Imperial Japanese Navy. They have, very famously, the King George V and the Prince of Wales, but they date back to the 70s and they're not great. They lack detail. Their Bismarck kit is inaccurate. Their Tirpitz kit is inaccurate. So even there you're really struggling, and there is always being new releases of Yamato and Bismarck and Tirpitz in all sorts of different guises. So why is it Airfix are not getting involved in that? So when I was at Telford, I caught up with Dale Lockhurst, head of brand, and asked him that question: why is it we're not seeing ships from Airfix right now? So the answer that he gave me was this: right now it's risk. And that's a reflection not on Airfix, but on the Hornby Hobbies group of companies. So that group of companies financially are not doing particularly well right now. So the group of companies is not anywhere near as profitable as they need to be sustainable. And whilst that's a problem for the group, Airfix themselves are really, really healthy. So Airfix is contributing to Hornby hobbies being more buoyant than it would be. So in terms of model kits and the ability to do model kits, Airfix are in a great place. And the last 4 years has seen them round the corner and start producing some extremely good, market-leading model kits with plastic moulding that's second to nobody, to be frank with you. But because the group of companies are struggling, the amount of money that Airfix have to spend on capex, so that's tooling for new kits, amongst other things like, you know, recruitment and overheads and upgrading the IT system in the office and all that sort of stuff that has to be done from time to time, there isn't enough money to do everything that they'd want. And so when they decide what they're doing, they have to focus on what they really know is low risk is going to sell. Now, when I was talking to Dale, we were stood opposite the new Lysander that's due to come out in January. And that was the example that Dale gave. Am I going to do a ship which has a limited or even no options, but to re-release it in the same format over and over again? Or am I going to do the Lysander that people are asking us for, and there's lots of different iterations and we can do lots of different runs with it? And, you know, you can't argue with that common sense approach to business. All business is risk averse. All business is there to make money. And as much as Airfix want to please their consumer, you have to put the consumer first, there is always a little trade-off. Now, many of us know that Airfix have this little formula that they go through. You know, has it been done by other people recently? Is it a gap in the market? Can we do lots of different versions? And ships don't necessarily fall into that. They can do, depending on the ship you're doing. So that is the real reason that we are not seeing model ships from Airfix at the moment, because they need to do things they have got less risk of getting a return on. And you know what? You can't argue with that logic, because as someone who started out many years ago, over 40 years ago, building models, started out with Airfix and built large quantities of Airfix kits over the 45 plus years that I've been modelling, I want to see that Airfix is still there tomorrow and next year and the year after. So I have to support the decisions that Airfix are making because they're making the right decisions for their business. But why do I love Airfix ships so much? Well, because they fit a market where there is huge gaps. So there are beautiful battleships that have been made in Great Britain that have never been turned into a model. And when they have, they've not always been very good. But when Airfix do a model ship, genuinely they are some of the best model ship kits you can buy. And I'll give you an example. So HMS Illustrious, their aircraft carrier, it was designed in a time of soft moulding for Airfix, but it was accurate, and it came with a great big sheet of decals, so you got all the decoration, you got lots of different helicopters and aircraft and bits and pieces for the flight deck, and it was a beautiful kit, and people love it. And those people that say, oh, ships don't sell, that you want to go on eBay and see how much HMS Illustrious sells for, because It's over £200 usually these days. You're lucky if you get one under £200. So people will spend the money on ships. People don't mind a higher price tag for ships. And in fact, they expect that it's going to cost a bit more. But you're so invested in getting that ship that it's worth it. They released a 1/350 scale Daring class destroyer. And Trumpeter have also released that kit. And when you compare the two, Airfix's is dimensionally accurate. Trumpeter's isn't. Airfix have got lots of detail that Trumpeter have missed. Trumpeter have made mistakes. Airfix haven't. And it's just a far, far better model. Yeah, it's soft moulded. But what I'd like to see is Airfix do a ship today with their new plastic, with their new abilities and their crisp tooled detail, and it would be a beautiful thing. And so I asked Dale that question: will you ever consider retooling HMS Victory? And the reason I asked the question is because not just because she's long in the tooth, but because she's an obvious candidate for Airfix to get this right. Since this kit was released, and this is a 70s release of the kit, since the kit was released, we have learned a lot more about HMS Victory than we did at the time of her release. And in recent years, she's been going a major refit and refurbishment, and there's been a lot of research into her. So we now know that the colours are wrong, but also when you look at this particular model of her, you can see there's little davits hanging off the sides and the ends. We now know that they weren't there during the Battle of Trafalgar, which is what's depicted on the artwork there. We also know things like the sign, the Victory sign, was different. So what we get is a view of the kit as she was in dry dock at the time, but not as she was at Trafalgar. And in fact, Victory in Portsmouth is not as she was at Trafalgar, because here on the poop deck there should be great big wooden panels. They actually look quite ugly, but they are historically correct. So there's an opportunity for Airfix to take all of that learning and produce a new kit that, well, I for one would love to see. So HMS Victory, the Airfix kit, this particular kit was the second tall ship I ever built at around about the age of 12 or 13. And when I built her, I didn't put the sails on and I didn't rig her because that was beyond my ability at the time. So I just did the plastic parts. And I have attempted to rebuild Victory twice since then. And on both occasions, I've ended up giving up because of the quality of the moulding. Now, I bought this one last year, and I could have bought the Airfix Vintage Classic one, but I didn't. I know two other people that bought the Victory last year, and they also bought old 70s versions of the kit release for the same reason. The older that tooling gets, the more sink and more flash there is in it. Now, I've not bought the recent Vintage Classic release, so I don't know if they've cleaned the tool up and improved it. But what I can tell you is Dale sees the HMS Victory new tool as a risk right now because sales are dropping. He did admit that they have talked about re-releasing, retooling the Victory, because after all, she's pretty much the only kit Airfix have released that has been constantly on catalogue all the time. But sales are dropping. Now, I suggested that maybe sales were dropping because people were buying the older ones. I'm fairly sure that Dale didn't accept the premise of my argument, and you know, he knows the market better than I do, so you have to go with what Dale thinks. But I think that if Airfix did do a new tool, people that have built this and got it on the shelf and don't really have an intention to build it again would prick up their ears and would be interested. So there you go. Right now there is no ships coming out of Airfix because there's a risk to doing so. But then there is no statement that they're never going to do ships again. There's no statement that they've pulled out of the market, and all these things I hear people say. It's just not where they are right now. Now, as I've intimated, there is a huge gap in the market for British ships. So even if Airfix decided to revisit their 1600 range and do it with their current standard, much lower risk, much lower cost in tooling, I think people would buy into them. So even though 1700 has become a common scale, there is a lot of love for the 1600 kits out there. There's a lot of my subscribers that talk to me about the vintage classic releases, Ajax and so on, that have been released. People like them, even though those kits are very basic by modern standards. So I think in the future we might see ships again from Airfix when times are better, but right now that's not where we are, unfortunately, which means we have to buy those terribly inaccurate ships from Trumpeter with all their mistakes and poor research. It's sad, but that's where we are. We'll be doing a second video about HMS Victory, and if you'd love to see HMS Victory retooled, you're going to want to watch that. So until that next video, you enjoy your modelling, and bye for now.